So, welcome everybody to the Red Room, the first session in this room for VB 2019. I hope you enjoyed the keynote. I think it was very interesting, and I felt that the keynote was about basically defending a nation. And I think the next two talks that we're going to have here in this room, as you guys all can come in and settle down, the next two talks that we have in this room are also about attacks against a very limited geography. The first talk is going to be, it's actually written by Lion Gu, who's a former colleague of mine, and Bowen Pan, both from Tianjin. The talk that we're going to have afterwards are going to be from the Japanese surge. And with that, if everybody's settled down, and there are still seats in the front here. I'm talking to you, Chuck. But with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Bowen Pan from Tianjin, and he's going to talk about APTs targeting China. Please welcome.
Thank you. So, morning, everyone. So, my name is Bowen Pan. And my colleague Liang is not, for some reason, is not come here. And this is our first time to come to the attendee to the VB conference, and also my first time to come to London. So today, I appreciate to stand here to talk about an APT group which named PoisonVine. And we disclosed by our team for the last year. So first is a very short introduction of our team. Our team name is Red Trip. So we came from a Chinese security vendor named Qianxin. And we are focused on the threat intelligence and APT tracing. And we uncovered several APT groups before, like the Ocean Lotus, and which also named by some security vendor the APT32. So you may, if you are interested in APT tracing or threat intelligence, you may follow the Twitter account. We will publish the newest report or some intelligence things on our Twitter account. So this is today's agenda. Is very general and common agenda here. And first, I'd like to talk about some main points of the APT group, PoisonVine, and then I will talk about some the capabilities, the resources, and the TTP related to this group, and also the impacts of the campaigns, and when we investigate with these APT threats and or APT groups. Finally, you may be interested in some attribution problems and attribution results. So this APT group is rare known. We named it PoisonVine, and we also get an eternal name like to the APT-C-01. And if you're familiar with us, if you're familiar with the Ocean Lotus, which also has an internal code, internal index like APT-C-0. So from the index, you may notice that we discovered this APT group just after we found the Ocean Lotus in 2015. So we also noticed that some foreign researchers may confuse with the internal name, because it's just like the the APT named below. It's just like the APT name, the Five Eyes convention. We just plus a C in the middle. So if you are doing the APT actor groups mapping, you shouldn't ignore it. It's really a known APT group because most of its activities is targeted to China, especially on the mainland. What is its intent? Its major interest is the cyber espionage and the intelligence collection. So of course, their most targets are the militaries and the politicians or just the sectors related to this. So we list some main targets here, like the government agency, the militaries, the researchers, and also the maritime agency as well. So you may be interested in how we discover this APT group at the first. In 2015, we discovered a new malware sample, a very special ones, and due to our internal malware hunting policies. And this malware named this malware is discussed like an document file, but it is really a executable file. But in the name of the file, it has long tails of space characters in the tail of the file name. So if the victim receive this file, and it may ignore the real file extension and just think it's a document. So they may click it and will trigger the malicious code running. So I list the timeline here. After we get this sample, we do some analyze and we extend some evidence based on the intelligence data. So we find it's a long-term activities begins at we believe that on 2007. So from 2007 and to this year is 11 years to long term. So we leave the timeline of, I think, is some milestone stage here. So the first malware sample we found is on the December of 2007, based on the file's compiling time step, and which they use this malware to target it a big shipping company in China. And they first use this payload. Detection sometimes detection name is the poison IVY rate. If you are familiar with the malware analyzer or malware samples, you may know this. You may heard of this rate. It named IVY rate. It's a very famous commercial and public rate in the world. So then the group may use some very special evade detection techniques, and we will also discuss this in the later slides. And after the end of the 2012, they started to use an open source rate named the Eggshell. And for this APT group, the spear phishing attack is the most frequently way they use to get the established foothold. But we also find some watering hole attack in 2013 to target it to some government and the military and compromise the website. And later, in 2014, we discovered the group had used a 0 day during the attack. And later, 1 year later, they customized development and RAID tools to using the cloud storage APIs to do the data exfiltration. So this is the first and the only one they built by themselves. So finally, in 2018 we published the APT report. PoisonVine for us is really not a sophisticated APT group. They just use several RAID tools like the Poison IVY, the Eggshell, and only one customized RAID tools. And they use several document exploits. And for the infrastructure they used, they prefer to choose some cheaper infrastructure. So due to this, we believe that the PoisonVine maybe there are limited resources or funds, and maybe a very small team behind. Firstly is our introduce the Poison IVY rates they are used. So as I said before, the Poison IVY is very famous and it's a commercial and public used rate in the world. And the left image on the slides is a configuration manual of these RAID tools, and you can configure the mutex name and some different types of shellcode to generate. And the very special thing is the encryption algorithm and the encryption to the strings in the RAID it use 2 rounds of the exclusive or operate. So it's not very common in the RAID tools. So although they use these public ones, but we found a very interesting thing is because of the IVY rate is not upgraded for many years. So the PoisonVine group used these patches some code in the RAID to adopt the RAID runs on the higher version of the Windows. So next is the Eggshell. The Eggshell is the open source RAID tools. You can find it and download it on the GitHub. But the adversary do some customize here. They add some special control command into the source code and compile it to fit some capabilities they used to. For example, here you may see here they add a command named IEPass to retrieve and stolen the credential files from the IE browser. And then is the only one customized tool they developed totally. So we named the Canbox rate because the rate used the cloud storage service in China, which named the Canbox. So this Canbox cloud disk not very popular nowadays, but it's popular in several years ago. So they use the data storage API to do the data exfiltration. And another interesting in the rate they developed is that they hard-coded several keywords to filtering the exact the sensitive document on the victim PC. It's of course the filtering keywords is to filtering the file name if including some special keyword like the military, like the war, like the army, in Chinese. Based on these keywords, we are obviously understand the intent of the PoisonVine. And in 2018, we found something different. They are used some PowerShell script or PowerShell or some other script language to load the shell code, the next stage shell code, and to do the drive-by download and to execute the final payload. And the final payload we discovered is also the IVY rate. So the core of the technology they used is not changed too much. So we also find some several malformed XML file on the Open Directory server, which the XML file has two SOAP elements, and the second one has an unclosed attribute, unclosed location property, which will trigger these CVE vulnerabilities. So although we don't catch the exploit document file in the during the investigate, but we found this malform that we can know that they are using this document this vulnerability in their attacks. And then we found that they're using the 0 days especially for the document exploit in 2014. Why we noticed this is a 0 day? So because firstly, this vulnerability is to bypass the patches of the CVE 4114. Which is used by another famous APT group, but we think the adversary, some guys in the PoisonVine, they will analyze these patches and find some more exploits here. And the Microsoft first disclosed and public the patches for these vulnerabilities on October 2014. But we found the earliest one, the exploit document they are used for attacking the victim is based on the creation time step of the exploit document is 1 month before, is on September 2014. And also we found several exploit documents is made it on that date but different time. So we believe that this time step this timestamp may not a faked one. So we believe that this is a 0-day status when they are using it. And this is some infrastructure they are using. The adversary prefer to purchase the dynamic domains because they are more cheaper and it's easy to rebind the DNS records. And the domain name, they chose like to disguise with the populated legitimate website in China, like some emails service provider or some antivirus company. We also show some some special TTP here. The TTP is really simple for this group. So they would recognize on targets and focus on some important conference in China. For example, the right image there, it's about a Chinese Asia Panic annual meeting in 2013. They're using these kind of subject and content of a special phishing email and made it like more similar, like sent by the official. And also they are using different types of payload here of the initial access and to got the established foothold, like the achieved PE and self-extract file, and also the disguised like a document file or folder file, and which use some other techniques to confuse the victim, like the right to left override techniques, and they may do some space character. A long tail space character padding here. And then the collection and exfiltration. And they're hard-coded in some filtering keywords in the payload directly. And also they are focused on the document, the sensitive document on the victim's PC, especially for the Microsoft some Office documents. And also you have, I highlight this like a WPS Office. It's a really wide using in the Chinese government. And then I will introduce some special defense evasion techniques. For example, they store the API name in a reserve order, and to dynamic cause it to reverse it to the normal ones, and also they pass pass an error parameter to a special API named getClientReact. So if you pass the 0 Windows handler to this API parameter as a parameter, they will fail to execute on the real system, on the real Windows system. But it will pass for the antivirus heuristic detection logic. So they use these techniques to detect the antivirus and avoid to detection. So this is I list some list of the Attck IDs here. So this will only several of them using. And next is the impact. I'd like to introduce some impact during the investigation. They are using the cloud storage. Because the several years ago, based on the competition of some internet companies between the competitions in China, they many of the internet company in China may provide their own cloud service or their own cloud storage. And also, they provide this service free and provide a large storage space or even unlimited space. So the adversary chose these kind of ways to do the data exfiltration and to storage the exfiltrated data. It's very cheaper, and even they just use provide an email address or a phone number to register account, and they can use it. But the problem is using this way is they must be hard-coded the token in the cloud store, in the payload. So during the investigate, during the analyze, we can retrieve this token and we can retrieve all the data on the storage as well. And also they made a mistake and using a symmetric encryption algorithm to encrypt the data. So we can use the reverse way to decrypt the data. So we know that the actor, what exactly the actor is exfiltrate. And the final is because the time unlimited, so the final thing is the attribution. So for some reason, I don't talk about the real attribute of this group here. So, but I'd like to discuss some ways of how we do the attribution problem. So, for example, we pick up the languages, the special languages, the special character encodings in the payloads, and which will help us to profiling which region maybe they come from, and also some who is registration information and some other ways. So, but we are carefully to analyze based on this evidence because they can be faked. We'll discuss. We need to know that we need to analyze this. It's a mistake or just a false flag. And the next interesting thing is that we also find from the same region here, named the blue mushroom, and it has a different TTP between this group. So we separate it. And this group we also disclosed last year. So you may find the report on our blogs or Twitter accounts. So, okay, so finally is the conclusion. The one thing I'd like to say is the APT actors not always very advanced, always that emulsificate. The PoisonVine is introduced is to prove it, and the APT group PoisonVine find its way to improve its attack, to improve its efficient, and to get some I think is to get their goals. So the topic is finished. So
okay.
Yeah.